inspiring you to build the life of your dreams by teaching you how to create a career you love. This is the Job Lab Podcast with your host, Nick Murphy.
Hey there, my friend, and welcome to episode 4 of the Job Lab Podcast. My name is Nick Murphy, and I'm really grateful that you've chosen to spend some time with me today. And there's so many things you could be doing right now, so many other people you could be listening to. So I'll never take for granted any amount of time that you give us each week. And I hope we're living up to your expectations and providing the value that you deserve. So if you're coming back to us again, thank you. And I want to welcome any new listeners. I'm happy you're here. And now that you are here, please make sure that you subscribe to the show so that you never miss an episode. If you love what you're hearing, the best thing you can do, share it with your network. Share it with other people that it can benefit. And obviously, if you want to help me out, consider leaving a 5-star rating and a review on the Job Lab Podcast out there on iTunes. If you missed last week's show, go back and check it out. I chatted with Melissa Hereford. She's an expert in the art of negotiating with confidence. We talk about how to reframe our fear of making big asks at work, and she announces a really great special free offer just for our listeners. So go take advantage of that. Today's guest is Julie Bauke, and she is tremendous. Julie's an executive career coach that spent more than 2 decades helping people navigate career changes and orchestrating successful job change roadmaps for her clients. In my conversation with Julie, I asked her about the common mistakes people make in their job search and how we can learn from them to avoid making them ourselves. I asked Julie how not to fall into the big black hole during a job search, and we talk about the dangers of executing without a plan. And then we dive really deep into the specifics on the 3 most common mistakes that she's seen over the course of her long career. At the end of the conversation, we play a little rapid fire with Julie Bauke. Julie was also kind enough to create a special gift for you, the listener, so make sure to listen for that and take full advantage of it. And with that, let's get right into my conversation with Julie Bauke. I'm really excited about today's guest. Right now, joining me is Julie Bauke. Julie helps people build their dream careers. She's a dynamic and highly interactive speaker, trainer, and coach with a passion for educating and inspiring individuals to take charge of their career. Julie Bauke, how are you today?
I am great, and I'm thrilled to be here with you, Nick.
Always great to have you. Do you want to fill in some gaps for that bio, let people know kind of what you do, what you specialize in, and just give us a little bit of a glimpse into the personal part of your life?
Sure. The first half of my career was in human resources, and I had countless conversations with employees at every company I worked for who were miserable in their jobs. And I just became fascinated with that as a topic. Why do people stay in jobs they don't like? And there's a lot of reasons. And one of them is they don't know how to move from where they are to where they want to be. And part of that is they don't know where they want to be. And so when I changed careers from human resources to the career management field in the late 90s, that still was something I was really interested in. You know, why do people do what they do when it comes to jobs and careers? And it's a multifaceted situation or problem, as you might imagine. And it's really what has formed the foundation of the work I've done and the work we do now, which is helping people overcome those barriers, strike down and go around those reasons for staying where they are to move towards something that is going to be much more fulfilling for them, give them happiness at work, which then, of course, has a ripple effect to making your life more aligned and happier as well. And so I started my own thing. I started Bauke Group about 11 years ago this month, as a matter of fact, to focus on helping people more strategic and thoughtful about their careers, to help them get into action so they don't just sit and spin and live miserably. It's something that I believe in. I speak passionately to everybody around me about that. And I have 2 boys who are now 23 and 25, who are in some ways your typical millennials, who they want to have meaning in their work. Those parents who say, stick where you are, be loyal, stay in that job. You got to stay at least 2 years. I'm the opposite of that. You know, I'm encouraging my boys to be thoughtful about it, be smart about it, but pursue what they want now so they don't get 20, 30 years down the road in their careers and are miserable, which unfortunately I think we all know way too many people who meet that definition today. There are ways around it. It's just unfortunately no one in our lives or in our education system actually teaches us about how to figure that out for ourselves and then go get it. So that's what we do, especially working with more senior level professionals as they navigate what their next best move is in their career. We give them the path, the strategy, and the support to get from here to where they're trying to go.
It's great to hear you tell the story about your boys. And every time I'm asked in the media about millennials and some of the advice that I'd give millennials in job search, new grads, one of my token lines is always, don't take career advice from your mom. And in your instance, I would have to take that back, but
they still don't, they still don't take it from their mom. They finally have gotten to the point they're old enough to maybe realize that I know what I'm talking about. So it's still, I think, is hard for them to take advice from me. But I'm still beating it into them.
You're still mom, right? So you're never going to be the expert that the rest of us look at you as. So happy anniversary on the 11-year anniversary of the Bauke Group.
Oh, yeah. I can't believe it.
That's exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
So you wrote a book called Stop Peeing on Your Shoes, and it talks about the most common mistakes that job seekers make. And so before we get into why you wrote the book and kind of what it's about, what's with the name?
Well, for 10 years, I worked in traditional outplacement, and I worked for a large company whose sole purpose was to work with people right after they'd lost their jobs. And we would call people and try to get them to come in to take advantage of their services. And they'd say, oh, no, I'm doing fine. I've got, I'm talking to recruiters. I'm fine. And then inevitably would hear from them a few weeks or a month later, and they'd say, okay, I'm not getting anywhere. I guess I'll come in. And I used to think to myself, all right, let's see how badly you've peed on your shoes, meaning by not knowing better how many mistakes you've made. And the other side of that is, puppies. And I'm a big dog lover. And puppies get so excited that they pee everywhere, including on your shoes. And unfortunately, that's what unskilled and uneducated job seekers do in their job search, is they just go outside and they just go out and talk to anybody who will talk to them. They do stuff and hope it works. And what they're doing is creating the equivalent of job search junk mail. And so they're really, really wasting their time and a lot of other people's times as they follow a pattern or a path that really isn't a path. They just go out and talk to people and hope for the best. And I call that peeing on your shoes. And there's just many, many, many pitfalls in doing it that way and ways to do it much better.
There are many pitfalls, and your book highlights, I think, 7 of the most common mistakes people make in job search. For the purposes of this show, we've narrowed it down to the 3 most common. So starting with that list, that shortened, abbreviated list of the 3 most common ones, what is that first mistake, and where do you see people fall into that trap?
Well, I picked the 3 I picked out of the 7 because I thought those were the ones that if people could just pay attention to those, they would make a dramatic difference in their search. And so the book was written for people who are in a search and stuck, not getting where they want to go, or they're in a search or they want to start a search and they want to do it right. They recognize there's a right way to do it. And so the first mistake I want to talk about is mistake number 1. And I call that jumping into the fire without your fireproof undies. And what that means is starting without a plan. It'd be like saying, I think I'm going to drive to Texas. And you just jump in the car and start driving and you just hope somehow that you end up in Texas, but you don't have a plan. And so our tendency when we're in a job search, let's say you've been laid off on Friday and you've been told, oh, you don't really need to come back on Monday. Your time here's done. Our tendency as humans, first of all, that feels bad. Even if you hated that job, being told you don't need to come back Monday still feels bad. It's like when someone breaks up with you, but you were going to break up with them. You want to do it first. So when you're told don't come back on Monday, your job is no more job. Our tendency is to want to feel better. So the first thing we do is we start reaching out to everybody we know. Can you believe they laid me off? Do you know of any jobs? Is your company hiring? And we operate from a position of panic and desperation. And we feel like we have to get going because we're freaked out. And as we know, people don't make good decisions when they're in moments of panic. And so the worst thing you can do when you get laid off or you step into a job search is to literally pick up the phone and start calling people. Because inevitably, those people are going to ask you some questions, and they should. And the first question is, oh my gosh, what happened? Or, well, so what do you want to do? And you are not, about 100 times out of 100, not prepared to answer those questions. You're not prepared to answer what I call the big 3. And these are the 3 questions that you have to be ready to answer in a very buttoned up way, planned, thoughtful, vetted, run by, dry runs with people you respect way. And the first question is, what happened? Or why aren't you at your last job? The second is, tell me about yourself. What do you do? And the third is, what do you want to do next? And those questions, people are generally seeking to understand and seeking to help. And so if you're not ready to answer those questions, then you are wasting everybody's time, and you're also ruining a potentially good networking contact. So, well, what happened? Why are you not at your company anymore? Generally, we just say things like, well, they don't know what they're doing. They just, they're going to find out they've made a mistake, or I have no idea, or I don't know, that person never liked me. We don't give good answers. And the problem with that is that the people on the other end of that answer are going to start to wonder, did you do something, were you a poor performer? Did you violate a policy? Did you grab somebody? And so you have to have that answer really buttoned up. And then the tell me about yourself is a very, very big question. You have to be ready to answer that question, because the people you're calling probably don't know, they don't have a good summary of your professional capabilities. And then what do you want to do next is getting to, how can I help you? And so with every conversation, you have to be ready with those answers. And most people, our model at my company, our model with our clients is think, plan, execute. With most people, how they do a job search is execute, execute, execute. And that's where the peeing on the shoes comes. It's really, Nick, it's like any project that you might start around your home, or you might start at work. You want to be really clear on what you want the outcome to be, what the steps are to get to that outcome. And you have to have your tools ready. You have to have your messages ready. You have to have, you have to really have your ducks in a row before you start a job search. And I would say 90 to 95% of the people jump into the fire with no clue about the need for those fireproof undies. And in this case is the answer to those three questions.
I love your style of writing too, because you take something that could be construed as it could be boring, right? Like I've heard a lot of people read lots of posts and audiobooks on job search and careers. And you just have this style of making things funny. And the pictures I get in my head reading your book just crack me up. So kudos to you on your style and just the uniqueness that you go about. So,
well, it doesn't have to be painful. For sure, it's not fun to look for a job, but you can make it less painful if you do it right. It's like anything else, right? If you're putting together a piece of furniture, something from IKEA, and you're trying to put it together, and having a plan, reading the instructions, knowing what it's supposed to look like when you're done is critical. And it's just something people don't think about, because they think all you're supposed to do is jump online and start answering ads. And that's a fool's errand.
Yeah. I don't know how anyone puts together anything from IKEA, whether they read the directions or not, but your point is well taken. What is the second most common mistake that you see that you pulled out of your book?
Forgetting. It's mistake number 2, actually. And I say it's forgetting that it's all about you. We jokingly say, oh, it's all about me, and everybody laughs. But when it comes to your career, it has to start with you. What do you want? Who are you? It's really getting super clear on who you are right now professionally. Let's say you've been at one job for 15 years. And so let's say you're 40 years old. You are a different person professionally and personally too than you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and certainly 15 years ago before you started your job. And so getting really clear on who you are and what you want is absolutely critical. So, what do you want? One of our questions, with our clients is, what do you want more of? What do you want less of? What do you never want again? And getting, it's not about finding unicorns and rainbows. It's about getting as close to what you want as you can. The problem is most people don't know what they want. They can tell you, oh, I don't want to work for this kind of person, or I don't want to commute longer than this, or I don't want this, or I'm not going to do that. But then when you turn it around and say, okay, describe your ideal job, given who you are right now. What do you want? What would ideal be? Most people look at you like they can't describe it, or they're afraid to say it, because we can get almost like, oh, I'm not going to get that. I'm not going to get all that. Well, if you don't know what you're looking for, then you aren't going to find it. It has to kind of go back to mistake number 1. You have to have a plan. But inside of that plan has to be some really, really deep self-knowledge. What do I want? What am I good at? There's a lot of stuff that we're good at, but we don't like to do, or we're not good at, what we love to do, you have to find that mix, something somebody will pay you to do. If there's something that you're just okay at, and that's always been your career, you may need to look at making a change. Because if you're just mediocre at something, or you're not, really, really good or a star or recognized as a high performer, you're probably always going to struggle because you're going to go from job to job, because when the layoff list comes up, you'll probably be first on the list. And so it makes sense to get as close to who you are and what you want to do as possible. And it's true that what you're good at and what you like to do, that's what we're going for. Something that you're both good at and like to do. But true, it also has to be something there's a demand for. Because if nobody's going to pay you to do it, then it's a hobby and not a job. So you have to be clear on that too. But really getting clear on who am I today? What does that mean for my career? And how do I go get as much of what I want out of my career as I can so that I can be as good at it and as happy as I can? So people say sometimes, well, who's hiring? I need to know who's hiring. And now we say, well, that's not really the question. It's who's hiring you. Because, there can be a company that's hiring, but from a culture standpoint, it's not a good fit for you. Or the skills and experience they value are not something you have. So even if you fake your way into a job with that company, that's a very short-term solution because you aren't going to last. Either you're going to become unhappy and underperform, or the company is going to see that you're not a good fit, and there you're going to be in the job market again. So you're much better off getting really clear on who you are and what you want, and putting together a plan with a focus toward getting that. But it really starts with self-awareness and self-knowledge.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head with self-awareness. I know, back when I was in the corporate world, one of the things that I used to do is I'd get fed up with a commission structure or a comp plan change, or my boss would piss me off, or something would happen and I would get bored or irritated. And I just assumed that, a new logo, a different boss, a different comp plan, something like that would make me happy and fulfill me. And it wasn't until I really took that time to reflect on just those things that we think we understand when we start a job search. Like, what is it that I really love about this? Or the other side of that is understanding through bad experiences what you don't want in your next role too. So it's all important, but that self-awareness and starting with that clarity can have that aha that I had finally, that was like, it doesn't matter what they pay me or who I work for. I'm not really cut out to be in this corporate world in the first place. And that, to me, that, it produced everything that I'm doing now and allowed me to really pour my heart, soul, and passion into the things that I'm innately curious about and relatively good at. And it saved me a lot of heartache. And in fairness to the companies that I would have gone and worked for, it saved a relatively short tenure there too as well. Coming up right after this break, Julie's going to give us the third mistake in her book, and we're also going to play rapid fire. Stay right there. We'll talk to you in about 30 seconds.
The Job Lab is brought to you by Mid-America Careers, the Midwest Career Network. Quickly search millions of jobs with a single click. Create alerts so you're the first to know when a great new job is posted. Research exciting new career opportunities, and more. No matter where you are in your professional journey, Mid-America Careers can help. Visit midamericacareers.com to claim your free account today.
Welcome back. Today I'm chatting with Julie Bauke. And just before we went to break, I so rudely cut Julie off, but you wanted to add a little something to that second problem we were discussing.
Yeah, there's a fear that people have of putting a stake in the ground and of saying, here's what I want to do. Here's what I'm good at, and I'm going to say no to things. We have such a hard time saying no to things, even if we know that those things aren't a good fit for us, because it's flattering for someone to say, well, how about you come, do inside sales? You're thinking to yourself, oh, that sounds horrible. But you convince yourself, you're like, well, maybe I'd like it. Or you convince yourself that maybe somebody else has better insight into what you'd be good at than you do. The ability to say, no, I don't think that's a good fit for me. I'm looking more for something like this is very liberating. And it helps people help you, because we don't get any place alone. And so your network is going to help you. But if you aren't willing and able to be clear to your network about what you want and what you don't want, they're going to throw up their hands, because you're going to come across as unfocused and unaware. And nobody is really comfortable stepping up to helping somebody who's unfocused and unaware.
So before we jump into the third one, what about people that are in a job? They don't want to leave. They're not looking for a job, but they've forgotten somewhere along the way that it is all about them. And maybe they're unhappy in their current role. Maybe they want additional responsibility. Maybe they want to move to a different part of the organization. How can they use these same kind of skills and self-awareness to begin to navigate that completely different track once you're inside an organization and in a role and already being paid? How does that play in all of this?
Yeah, that's a great question. The stress, changing companies is stressful. And there's a lot of unknowns that, you're going to walk into. And so we always recommend that if you can fix it where you are, you want to try to do that first. But it's the same process. So if you're unhappy in your job for whatever reason, you have to figure out why. Is it the work you're doing? Do you not like it? Are you not great at it? Are you highly collaborative, but they've got you working alone? You have to be able to go in and diagnose why you don't like it. And then figure out, if there's any of those things that you can fix or change where you are. And it could be that, you need a little more, you love working with customers and your new job doesn't have you working with customers very much. So, you may get very clear on that. Go talk to your leader or whoever is the appropriate person and just say, I'm really missing customer contact. It would really make a difference, I think, if I could have some more contact with customers. How could we do that? Maybe there's a project team you could be on. And so you have to go with solutions. And sometimes you figure out through that process that you can't fix it where you are, that you do have to move on. But we're proponents of getting really clear on what is or isn't working and going and talking to somebody and putting together a plan to get it either now or sometime in the future. If you know what you want and need and you're pretty much told, yeah, that's not going to happen here, go back to work, it's time for you to move on.
And the first thing you've got to do once you have that self-awareness is actually make that ask. And if you didn't catch last week's episode with Melissa Hereford, I invite you to go back and check that out. She talks all about negotiation and different ways to frame and look at that scary word, negotiation. So many people are afraid to ask for what they want. And so if you struggle with that, but you're understanding what Julie's putting out here and you feel like you need to make this decision and have these conversations inside your organization, go back and listen to episode 3 with Melissa. And Julie, I know you have 7 of these gems inside your book. We only have time for one more. So what is that third common mistake?
Falling into the big black hole. And the big black hole is over-reliance on job boards, recruiters, and really just technology in general. Back in the day, people used to send out hundreds and hundreds of resumes, like U.S. mail, hard copy, stamps, the whole thing. That was not very effective then. Then technology comes along and it makes it seductively seem easier. Oh, geez, you mean I don't even have to go to the post office? I can sit here in my pajamas and send out letters and apply to jobs online? Wow, this is great. Well, it's also a recipe for frustration, depression, and a very long job search. Only about, I've heard a number, but no number higher than 12 to 13% of jobs are filled strictly from job boards. 2/3 or more of people are hired in their jobs by someone they know or someone they meet throughout their process. And so sitting at home, applying online to, it could even be hundreds of jobs, is a losing proposition. So let's say you see a job, it looks great, it looks like a great fit for you. And it's very easy to apply. Well, guess what? It's easy for several hundred other people to apply as well. So maybe you're 1 in 400 people who apply for this job. Maybe you're 1 in 600 people who apply for that job. You're 1 in 900 people who apply for that job. Those are very, very bad odds. And the problem is you might be the most qualified candidate for that role, but because you're going to get lost in the shuffle among the 600 other people who applied, your resume will probably never make it to the top of the pile. HR people and people who review resumes that are submitted on job boards are completely overwhelmed. And so you are simply an attachment. And so relying solely on job boards and technology tools and recruiters for your search is a losing proposition. And recruiters, there's just a general lack of understanding about what recruiters do. Recruiters don't work for you. So if you ever hear yourself saying something like, I've got a recruiter working for me, you don't. Unless you're paying them, which you shouldn't be.
Yeah, that recruiter's working for them. They're paid on the placement fee.
Right? The recruiter's working for the company. If you happen to be a good fit for something they're recruiting for, and you happen to get that job, remember the recruiter did not work for you. But sometimes recruiters try to make it seem like they are working for you because they want to keep you on the string and they want to just fish you out, throw you out to a bunch of their contacts. A lot of times those contacts, they haven't agreed to pay a fee. But if that company hears about you from a recruiter first, they can't hire you because they heard about you from the recruiter first if they're not willing to pay a fee. And so it's easy to think that all you have to do is sit at home and point and click and send your resume out to recruiters and call recruiters. But recruiters don't have time to talk to everybody who calls. And it's not their job to help you find a job. And so there's just a general misunderstanding of how all of this works. And networking can be really uncomfortable for people, but people hire people. They don't hire attachments, downloads, or pieces of paper. And as long as, in our lifetime and probably everybody else's lifetime, that's how hiring is going to happen, 2/3 or more. And so sitting behind your computer and hoping for the best and just point and click and point and click and point and click is futile. And if that's all you're going to do in your search, it's going to be a very long search. Now, the exception is if you have a skill set that's high in demand and there are very few of you out there, and when you apply for a job, maybe there's 8 of you who apply. If your skill set is in demand, then, you can probably get away with applying for things online. But that's not true for most of us. And so don't get sucked into that.
Yeah. I think, as someone who, full transparency, I own a job site. So I'm not anti-job board or job site by any stretch of the imagination, but I think you hit it on the head when you said if you rely solely on that, it's easy to sit at home on your couch in your underwear, point and click. And not only are you not doing all these other things, you're not thinking and planning and executing, you're just executing. You're not remembering what it is that you want. You're applying to anything. And what I see more and more is the sites out there that make it, apply with LinkedIn, apply with Indeed. The easier it is to apply, those are the jobs I choose to apply to. And it's no longer about fit. It's no longer about a custom kind of path for your career that you've thought through, that you're excited about, and that you're being tactical and specific. So I think you absolutely nailed it. I just wrote down a note here too. We need to do an entire episode on the place of recruiters, because you're right. There is a massive misunderstanding out there among working professionals about what a recruiter does, how they're paid, what they're really primarily concerned about, and where their loyalties lie when push comes to shove. So thank you for that. Now, are you ready?
Uh-oh, is this the rapid fire?
This is it. This is rapid fire with Julie Bauke. You ready to go?
Yes, and I want everybody to know you did not tell me the questions in advance, and so I'm ready. I'm up to the plate. I'm ready to swing.
All right. What do you think about when you're alone in your car?
Oh, gosh. I didn't know these were going to be these kind of questions. I think about, I don't even know when I'm alone in my car, probably because I don't drive that much because I go pretty close, every place pretty close to my house. Generally, I think about what my kids are up to, wonder what they're doing, hoping they're okay. I think anytime my mind wanders, when you're a mom, you never quit worrying about your kids, no matter if they're 18, 21. And so I generally think about them and wonder what they're doing and hoping they're happy is when my mind wanders. That's what I'm thinking about.
What's your advice for your previous boss?
He was a wonderful, wonderful person, and I loved reporting to him. But he had this annoying habit where when you were meeting with him, he'd keep looking at his watch. And so you're always like, oh, you got to go? You always felt like you were being dismissed. So I'd tell him, put your watch away.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
Well, first of all, you've nailed something. I hate it when people say I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, because I always say you're already grown up. And so I want to just keep doing what I'm doing until the day I feel like I can't contribute anymore. And then I just want to play with dogs all day.
What inspires you?
Young people who have a passion and an energy for something. They don't believe they have barriers. They have some naivety that I think propels them forward and keeps them from being cynical. I love the energy of young people who have found a cause that they can throw their whole selves into, because that's really what changes the world.
What is your biggest fear?
Losing my health. I think, now that I'm in my 50s, well into my 50s, you hear people say all those times, oh, if you've got your health, you have everything. And when you're younger, that doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't mean that much. You're like, well, duh. As you get older, the more people your own age who start to get sick and have things happen to them, and you start to see more people in the obituaries that have your age next to their name, those sort of statements become real. And so I think you get old enough and you recognize that you never know what's around the corner. And you just try to, taking care of yourself means more than it ever did.
Who do you admire the most?
I admire some of the women who were a part of the women's movement in the 70s. Women who were the first ones to push back against what was sort of the prevailing order of women staying home, being housewives only, and really not having any other choices. And I'm big on choice. And so the women who really were trailblazers in the women's movement in the 70s, in the 60s and 70s are the ones that I really, really look up to, because you really were pushing against every societal norm and being told to shut up and sit down and stay in your place. And I think it took tremendous courage to go against what people expected of you and what people expected your role to be and push for something new. And sometimes I think these days it's easy to lose track of all the work that came before, giving women all their choices and options that we have now. And it's easy to forget about those women who did that. And I greatly admire them, because, it's hard to stand up and call attention to yourself, especially when you've got something that may be considered an unpopular position. And I just admire anybody who's able and willing to do that.
Which celebrity annoys you the most?
Sean Hannity. You know what? Anybody who is any celebrity or news person, any person in the public eye who is so one-sided and so certain that they're right, or such a black and white thinker on the left or right, really does annoy me, because it's just, life is not that simple. It feels safe sometimes to take a position and not be able to see outside of it. But I think that's where the good stuff comes from, because as people and as society, our issues are not black and white. And so anybody who dismisses any issue as being simple or black and white, or obviously I'm right and you're wrong, just causes me to bang my head against the wall.
Julie, you were a heck of a sport. Thanks for playing that game. Next time, and for future guests that are listening to this, next time I offer, hey, do you want a glimpse into the rapid fire questions? Either say yes or listen to a previous episode, because here's a hint, all those questions are the same. There's a couple extra ones if you're a talent acquisition leader, but everyone else gets asked the exact same question. So food for thought. Julie, you've been super generous to spend this time with us today and share your knowledge and insights. You've actually done a step further too, and you've created a special offer just for our listeners. Describe what that is.
I picked 3 of my 7 mistakes, and there's a chapter for each of those mistakes. And it goes into further detail than I did. And it also has examples and stories for each one, so that maybe help you take what you've learned and apply it to yourself. So I am going to give you those 3 chapters. I'm going to pull those out of the book and give those to anybody who's interested, so you can get more insights on those 3 topics.
Sounds perfect. We're going to put that link in the show notes. It will be on thejoblab.com, or just click the show notes and check that out. All right, Julie, last thing, one parting piece of advice for our audience, and how can people that want to follow you do so?
You have to believe that you have something to offer someone else. No one cares about your career as much as you do, and they shouldn't. Your career is yours to manage. If you're a boomer, you're used to the old days where people told you when you were ready to move on. We're in a different time now, so you need to take control of your career in a way that shows that you understand that you own it and you're not giving responsibility for it to anyone else. It's a new way of thinking, but it's the one you must adopt, I think, to be successful today. Our website is thebaukegroup.com, TAG, B as in boy, AUKE, group.com, thebaukegroup.com. And Stop Peeing on Your Shoes is available on Amazon in paperback or in Kindle version.
All right, we will put that website link in our show notes as well. Remember, guys, think, plan, then execute. Don't just execute. Your job search really is all about you, and don't get sucked into that big black hole. Julie, always a pleasure. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to have you back on the show in the future.
Thank you.
And there you have it, my friends. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Julie Bauke. And don't forget to go grab those free chapters of Stop Peeing on Your Shoes, the most epic ebook title in the history of time. You can do that by heading over to thejoblab.com/E4 download. On episode number 5, I'll chat with Ellie Johnson, founder of Truthability, an Australian firm that teaches people all about truth dilemmas. In our conversation, we'll highlight the gap in awareness for many people in knowing how to encourage more truth from others accurately read behavior, and even spot signs of deception early. So if you find yourself in a situation at work or in an interview or just anywhere in life, wondering how much to disclose, should I be totally honest about why I left that job, or just always wondered how to pick up on when you're being BS'd, episode 5 will be one that you do not want to miss. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the show and make sure that you never miss an episode. I just teased Ellie's episode, and frankly, so much of what's on deck over the next couple of weeks and months is just as fascinating and unique. So subscribe now if you haven't. There's no reason to wait and risk missing one of these crazy, cool, completely unique episodes. And if you like what you're hearing, please give the Job Lab podcast a 5-star rating and consider leaving a review for us out there on iTunes. To tack on to what Julie said, failing to plan is planning to fail. Don't just execute a search blindly. And please, for the love of God, be sure not to just pick up the phone right after an unexpected career move and start venting. You're not ready. Go grab Julie's free gift at thejoblab.com/E4 download and make sure that you add her tips to your tool bag the next time that you consider making a job change. You'll be glad you did. As always, never settle. Thanks for being here. I'll be back with you next week.
You've been listening to The Job Lab with your host, Nick Murphy. To make sure you never miss an episode, subscribe on iTunes or Google Play today.